What's up, everyone? So I'm sure by now you've seen it, the gameplay that was dropped by the developers of the day before. Remember, for some of you who watched my last video, I said and I told you that I thought that this project was a real project in the sense that it is a vertical slice of some kind that's been developed in an engine somewhere and does have player characters and player control that they're using to try to market the product to become whatever it is that they finally eventually develop the game to be. This is the simplest and the best explanation that you can go with something like this, because in order for you to fake this kind of gameplay, it's actually going to be very difficult to do. You'd have to spend a lot more money. On the other hand, you can spend time, use a lot of assets and general knowledge that's available on engines like Unreal Engine to be able to come up with something that looks like this. It's not out of the question. It's not impossible. In fact, if you really want to kind of see what people have been able to do, you can go on YouTube and see a lot of projects that have been done in Unreal Engine 4 that are very, very good looking projects that will pass for video games themselves. I think the day before is something of that sort at this phase that is playable and possibly in its alpha phase of gameplay. I say this because of specific markers that I've seen, specific things, because already you have, say, the world fleshed out, but one thing that will give you a good clue is the menu. The menu looks very basic in a sense, but seems to have had some improvements from the last time that we got to see it. Also, the game gives you the survival vibe, whereas many people may or may not know the game was somewhat gunning for the fans of Tom Clancy's The Division and The Division 2, which is a game that, yes, it doesn't necessarily represent the similar concept, but you can tell that from the way they designed their world. With the day before, they're actually looking at New York City, which is where the Division 1 was set, and a lot of the different things are there. But when it comes to UI, when it comes to those elements, Ubisoft Massive has a huge talent pool that were able to help them provide a very good looking UI compared to, say, what you see here in the day before, which is somewhat basic, but is a little bit more presentable. Also, if you're wondering if these developers have the capacity and the prowess to actually make this game, they actually do, because there are resources out there that can actually help them map their way towards developing this video game that they're over here showing. Now, the question that I think is on everybody's mind is, this particular gameplay slice that you've seen, is it going to be representative of the work of the game eventually when it's fully released? And I'm sure that's a very important question that we must take a look at, because already from what we got to see, the world seemed like, as a post-apocalyptic world, it seemed like it was very basic, even if all the assets had been added and positioned and the world is looking like it's something that's coming to life. It just seems like it's missing a piece in regard to, say, some elements. And I'll say those elements are like weather elements or even signs of past life or even continuing life in a sense, or I would say continuing survival that's going on. As of now, it still has that bare bones nature to it. I'm not saying that this should be teeming with people on the streets high-fiving you like you're Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I'm just saying that those elements in an artistic sense usually bring a world to life and I say life, and it's weird because this is a post-apocalyptic world, but we've seen a post-pandemic world in The Division 1, and so people are probably expecting that density of the world that showed that people used to live here. From what you're seeing here with the day before, the world looks super clean. Like, man, I mean, I wouldn't say super clean. It looks cleaner than a world that's been really affected or heavily affected by a zombie apocalypse of a sense. So that's what's missing in the terms of the environmental design. Regarding the survival aspect, that's where we're still asking questions and wondering, what are the developers planning for this game and how is it going to progress? Are you just running and roaming around, gathering supplies and trying to stay alive? To what end? To what cause? How is it going to play? And what are the multiplayer aspects of this game going to look like? You see, this vertical slice is very detailed. It's very high end in terms of the asset quality and so on and so forth. So from a gameplay perspective, this looks really nice. But from an implementation perspective, how is this going to run on the plethora of machines that possibly are not able to run video games like these? It's either the game is already super duper optimized and can actually get the job done, but then you have to answer the next question, which is networking and replication in Unreal Engine 4, which is where you basically take actions and kind of duplicate them over a server so that player A can see what's going on in the world, as well as player B seeing the exact same thing. Example, those zombies that you're seeing over here on the screen, if both players are playing over an internet connection, replication is basically you doubling or duplicating these events or scenarios for both players to see and then to interact with. So if those zombies have health bars and a health pool, both players are able to at least interact with the health bar. So if they're shooting the enemy NPCs, the enemy NPCs are taking the collective damage and also outputting the collective, response to the damage and the bullet damage and all that stuff. So that's pretty much it. When you're running a video game over a server, your quality is definitely going to take a hit. And so I don't necessarily know how they're going to pull off a game looking like this over internet connections online. But you never know. It's very possible and highly likely that they'll be able to do something like that. So more is yet to be seen, and them moving the game all the way to November, to me, is indicative that the game still needed a lot of work to go on. So my best guess is once they have a slice of something playable, I foresee this game going into early access so that people can get their hands on it and try it out if it's not picked up by, say, an investment interest that wants to go ahead and sponsor the development, or a publisher that wants to bring in some more expertise regarding marketing, regarding technical development, and so on and so forth. And that's probably where it is that we're going to go, because it seems like so far a lot of the mechanics are actually put together. And if many people are kind of still doubting, like, hey man, how is it possible that a studio that's not really developed a lot of stuff can come around and develop a video game that is this good looking and this ambitious? I say don't necessarily think of it that way. Think about the fact that human beings were capable of learning, and there are a lot of resources out there. In fact, I have a tutorial that I purchased from a gentleman that's a game developer that is a survival tutorial where you can actually make the framework of a video game like the day before in its most skeleton form, and then all of the dressing up and all of the different aspects in terms of building the world and your environment is something that you can do uniquely separately. So this look is not necessarily the thing that should drag you in. It's the fact that they were able to come up with the game mechanics, and they're, in a sense, looking like they're poised to showcase those game mechanics much more. That is what is the most impressive thing. But there are resources all over the place to get things like these done. Now, if it's going to be playable and implemented is the next thing that we need to see. And that's the only thing that we can judge when the gameplay is finally in the hands of gamers, or at least somebody whom we can actually verify would have played the game. So these are my thoughts so far regarding this game, and I'm sure many people are still skeptic and so on and so forth. I'll just take it as a preliminary. In fact, to me, I think this is probably the very first gameplay that we should kind of put our hands on, in a sense, and expect maybe a downgrade in terms of quality at the time the game is releasing, or possibly they're maybe going to be fortunate to be able to land the intersection of the advancement in technology that's going to be coming pretty soon, seeing that they have an exclusive PC launch at first, and then over time be able to redevelop aspects of the game for console. So I'll talk to you guys in another one. I appreciate your time and audience. Thank you so much, and hang in here for some day before content. I'll be very happy to go ahead and provide more of it, because this is a game that seems to, in a sense, intersect with some of what The Division has done from a presentation standpoint. Talk to you soon. Peace out.